We are officially halfway through the final season of Game of Thrones, so I will break down last night's episode in The Good, the Bad, and the Martin. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
All right, I really want to get into it, so I'll get this out of the way real quick. A big reminder that the podcast is now officially on iTunes, so please subscribe there. You can easily find it by typing in Super Dario World Podcast in the iTunes Store search bar. You could also rate the show there. It would be extremely helpful. So far, still 5 stars. And I talked to my brother this weekend. The a-hole said that he was considering doing 4 stars just to mess with me, so it's not easy to maintain it. Even my own family's out against me, so I appreciate all the support, and I appreciate all the people who subscribed. If you want, you can also find it on SoundCloud and YouTube. Still not on the iHeartRadio app, but whatever. As always, please add me on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Dario the Show. You can always contact me there with any comments, questions, or suggestions. The feedback is still great. And a quick reminder that Eddie Papani should be on with me tomorrow. We will be discussing Avengers Endgame. So any questions you have for us, send them to me there. But okay.
Dragon Blackari!
So, episode 3 of the final season of Game of Thrones aired last night. It was called The Long Night. And not only was it the longest episode the show's ever had, it had the biggest fight scene the show has ever had. So it was meant to be epic all around. Now, in some ways it accomplished this, and in some ways it didn't. I'll get to that in a bit, but first I want to address a question that people always ask me. Dario, why do you care so much? Why do you compare so much? Why do you keep watching the show if it only makes you upset? Why? If you're only going to bitch about it, why the hell do you watch it? You're not even a real fan of the show. Why are you so hypercritical about it? Just enjoy it. Just enjoy the show. My answer to that last one is I would if I could. Honestly, I would if I could. And to the whole not being a real fan of the show, I am. I'm a hardcore fan of the show. I'm a hardcore fan of the story in general. I just hold it to a way higher standard than everybody else. Now, why? Why do I hold it to such a high standard? Why do I care so much about this show? And why am I less forgiving in my critique of it? And a part of it has to do with them having such a large budget. Because if you have so much money to work with, you should be able to give us something that's higher quality. Some people do way more with way less. And a good example of this is Game of Thrones Season 1, which I consider to be the best season. And they had the smallest budget. So how is it that you could give us a better product with less budget? I don't understand. It should be going up, not down. If your best season is the first one, you messed up epically. But anyway, another reason that it bothers me is because it's not an original story. It's based off of somebody else's work. The story's already been written. The hard part's already been done. The universe has been created. The characters have been created. Most of the lines have already been written. So all you had to do was adapt it from one medium to the other in the most interesting way possible. And they keep crashing and burning there. I don't understand how. Okay, those things I can understand because you do lose a little bit in the transfer, and they did invest heavily in the dragons and everything because it does look really good. But I can forgive those things. The thing that bothers me the most, and I mean the most, and the reason why I take it so personally is because I feel the producers and writers of the show think that the audience is a bunch of idiots who won't notice things. And I take that personally because I'm a member of that audience. So if somebody thinks I'm an idiot, I take that personally. And let me explain, because I'm going to try to bring you into what it's like to be in a writer's room, how things work, so you can see my point, or you can understand why I see it that way, because I have been in a writer's room and I do kind of understand how things work there. So I'll give you a perfect example. Season 6, Episode 1, for those of you who don't remember, Sansa and Theon have just escaped from Ramsay. They just escaped Winterfell, and they're running through the Wolfswood. So Ramsay sends his hounds after them, they chase them down, they track them, and eventually they catch up. So for some odd reason, Theon thinks that if Sansa runs away 10 feet, they won't catch her, so he tells her to run while he waits. The guards catch up, and they're like, dude, we have dogs that can sniff her, and she's right there. So the dogs find her immediately, but out of nowhere, Brienne and Podrick come, they kill the guards, and Sansa and Theon are saved. Except for one big glaring thing. What happened to the dogs? There were hounds right at Sansa's face wanting to eat her, and they just disappeared. Now, a lot of people have told me, hey, what if they just ran away? I mean, they're dogs. They could have gotten scared. They could have run, or the guy could have run or something. But here's the thing. Those were Ramsay's dogs. These were killers. He usually starved them so that they would be even more vicious. They eat people. These are not normal dogs. These aren't even normal hunting dogs. They're in a completely different level. So if you're the kennel master in that position, you know you have the upper hand, because if you let go of the dogs, the person they're there to rescue would die. So you could very easily tell Brienne, hey, bitch, drop your sword, or I kill her. I let my dogs loose and they kill her. Or you can just let the dogs loose, let them kill Sansa, and then fight while you try to run and survive. Because dogs tend to defend their masters. Dogs will stand up against a bear to defend their masters. It's not normal. Nothing that happened in that scene is normal, but it was a decision, and this is what bugs me, and I'm going to bring you into the writer's room. This was all somebody's decision, because somebody decided to leave that scene that way. And okay, so this is how things usually work in a writer's room. Now, I don't know the minutiae of the workings of the Game of Thrones writing room because they're super secretive, but I'm going to assume here that it's one guy who wrote this scene. One guy wrote this scene, and he passed it on to the producer, to the director, maybe another writer. The point is, other people read it, and they read it, and everybody's like, okay, this works here, this doesn't work here, maybe tweak this, maybe tweak that. And while they're discussing that, there's always one a-hole who has to ask the question, what about the dogs? And everybody's like, fuck, the fucking dogs. Damn it, what are we going to do? And there's where the decision comes in. But let's assume, you know what? Let's assume that in that room, there's nobody who's really good with continuity. And they're like, oh, nobody noticed it. The producers, the director, the writers, nobody noticed that the dogs were missing. Well, then comes the actors. The actors have to read it. But, actors can be dummies, so maybe they didn't notice it either. Now, there's a guy who is cast as the kennel master who has the dogs. If that guy doesn't notice that the dogs disappeared in his fucking scene, I don't get it. There's also an actual dog trainer on set. But let's assume he doesn't have a script, all right? Let's assume they didn't give the dog trainer a script. Well, there's somebody who has to choreograph the fights, and if my job is to choreograph a fight, and they tell me what happens in the scene, and they say dogs are hunting down Sansa and Theon, and then Brienne and Podrick come in, and they fight 3 soldiers, and they rescue them. My first question would be, are the dogs a part of the fight? Because that completely changes everything, and you have to have people in for safety, or is it going to be a CGI fight? You ask questions, but let's assume that guy was a dummy too. Well, then comes the shoot. And how things usually work is that you have a walkthrough of a scene before you shoot it, so camera knows where everybody's going to stand, and lighting, and actors kind of know what they're supposed to do, so they walk it through first. And during all those walkthroughs, nobody noticed that there were just 3 dogs standing there because they didn't really have anything to do after they catch Sansa. Nobody? But okay, let's assume that those people are idiots too. That the dog trainer was like, oh, well, I have no more lines here. I have nothing to do here. I'm just going to walk away. I'll take my dogs for a walk. Whatever. They're idiots too. So next comes editing. And in the editing room, nobody, and this is where you have to be the most critical about everything. You have somebody for continuity on set, by the way. So you have somebody in continuity on set, and there's somebody on continuity during editing. But whatever. They actually have to make notes for every single shot taken. But whatever. You're in the editing room, and the editor doesn't think to ask, hey, what happened to those dogs? What happened? Anything? Do you have any shots of the dogs? Because I need to show what happens to them, because otherwise the scene won't make sense. The point I'm trying to make, there's a lot of layers here, and there's a lot of fuck-ups that had to happen in order for those dogs to disappear for no reason. Or the other option is that it was somebody's decision in the writing room to begin with, when immediately after the first person asked, hey, what about the dogs? One of the people who said, fuck, damn it, what are we going to do? They stopped, they thought, and then they decided, you know what? Fuck it, I don't think the fans are going to notice. Instead of finding a creative solution for that problem, they said, fuck it. And that's it. That was his decision. It was somebody's decision to say, fuck it, I don't think the fans are going to notice. I think they're too stupid to notice. And I take that personally. And the series is riddled with stuff like this. I can't tell you how many continuity issues there is in Game of Thrones. There's so many things that make no fucking sense. And from one scene to the other, it's like I think that the writers don't communicate, or they hired people who haven't watched the show, because some things that they say on the final season, like in the latest season, completely contradicts things that we've seen on previous seasons. Hell, that we've seen on a previous scene sometimes. It's ridiculous. They've broken the rules of their own world so many times. And it boils my blood when it happens because they're saying, you're idiots, you won't notice. All of you guys, we're going to put a whole bunch of cool shiny dragons in front of you, and you're too stupid to notice. Well, some of us notice, and some of us take it very personally. Because it's not a rare thing. There's way too many examples of things just like that happening that you're just like, this has to be on purpose. This is not just a random accident. There's too many. But anyway, I wanted to get that out of the way. I want to explain that just because it's something that a lot of people ask me. And hopefully that answers your question of why I take it so personally or why it upsets me. But anyway, let's move on to the good, the bad, and the Martin. So this episode is pretty much the Battle for Winterfell. The army of the undead is coming to Winterfell to take Bran. And so that's the plan. That's the Night King's plan. They're going to go show up there and they're going to take Bran. They're going to kill him and kill all the human memories out there, even though books exist. But whatever. So the good and the bad here kind of go hand in hand because one thing leads to the other. And so I'm gonna kind of keep the good and the bad together. But let me start with one thing. The guy who directed this episode is the exact same guy who directed the episode of the Battle of the Bastards. And the Battle of the Bastards can be described exactly in the same way as this episode can be described. Everything you see on screen looks really good. It looks really cool. A lot of really cool things happen. But none of it makes any fucking sense. So let's begin with the battle sequence. Let's begin with the good. It starts with Melisandre showing up. She grabs the Dothraki Ark, sets him on fire, which looks super fucking cool. The wave of fire going up. Then nobody says anything really, and the Dothraki charge against the darkness as the catapults and trebuchet fire with them, and they clash against the army of the undead. Then you see their lights flicker one by one, meaning that they died. So that looked really fucking cool. Where's the bad? Well, the bad is nobody talked to each other after Melisandre set their arcs on fire, right? I don't think they even had torches. So that means that they did not alter their plans in any way. Which means that their original plan was just to charge the army of the undead with the Dothraki and no weapons that could kill them, except maybe Jorah's Valyrian steel blade. Because three things, but at this point, everybody should know that only three things kill the whites. It's Valyrian steel, obsidian, or fire. And yet they were planning on charging without any of the things that could kill them. So basically, they were just going to go and give the army of the undead 80,000 Dothraki screamers and horses? That was the big plan? That was their strategy to begin with? Are you fucking kidding me? And also, I'll give credit where credit's due. My buddy Gil said this, who, by the way, for some reason was very upset that I didn't give him credit for other theories that he's had. But anyway, he said that, dude, how fucking awesome would it be if they just got charged by all the Dothraki screamers that they just sent to their death? And that would have been epic. It would have been amazing, but they didn't do it, so missed opportunity there, I guess. So good, really cool fire swords. Bad, didn't make any sense strategy-wise. Now, another thing that I put in the good category is that it looks like I was correct in my prediction that Ghost died in this episode. The bad part is that it looks like Ghost kind of died in this episode, and he did it off-screen, which, by the way, look back to the previous episode. Just the previous episode where Ghost shows up, he's like half the size that he is on this episode. Right now, he's almost the size of a freaking horse, a war horse. But anyway, it sucks they got rid of Ghost that way, and it made no sense. Again, Ghost has no natural weapons to fight the whites. Like, if you would have set him on fire and then set him off against the whites, I would have given you, okay, well, that's at least a strategy. Now they just send him off to its death. It made no sense. They killed off my boy Ghost. Anyway, I saw that coming, so happy I kind of guessed that one correctly. Sad because I guessed that one correctly, I guess. Anyway, moving on. Next comes a barrage of zombies just charging at the Unsullied lines. They're struggling for survival. They almost get wiped out at the front. It looks epic. We see Grey Worm put on his helmet, pissing his pants. We see everybody realize, fuck, we should not be out here. Or at least I should have a shield or at least a helmet the way Grey Worm does. Fuck, this is a bad strategy. Anyway, that's the good. It looks kind of cool and you actually see the terror in the actor's eyes. The bad, again, no fucking sense. Now, I understand that you need to know a little bit of medieval warfare in order to understand this next point, but the characters in this world are supposed to be experts. And honestly, if any of the writers or the director had played a strategy video game in their life or read a medieval warfare in this book, they would not have done things the way they did. So, just to give you an example, the catapults were not only outside of the castle, they were in front of your infantry. Now, usually you want to keep those behind your soldiers where they can be protected and you can keep firing them. Also, they only fired once, so what's the point of even having them out there? Another thing, the cavalry was in front of your footmen. Now, your footmen usually want to create a spear line, so that way they can't break through you and get you from the back, and also you can kill people in front of you. It's basics. But the most egregious thing, because there was a lot that happened out there, I also did not understand how Grey Worm teleported from the front line. Honestly, I had no idea where he was standing, because at first I thought he was all the way at the front, then it turns out he was kind of closer to the middle, and then he was all the way at the back. I don't understand how he moved around, but whatever. Anyway, the most egregious thing to me is they built trenches behind them. So they built trenches to fuck up their own retreat. Usually you build trenches in front of you. You know why? So they don't charge you the way they did. That way they have to stop or they crash against something. That thing that they crash against is not you. But they built trenches in a spot where they couldn't run away anymore. It's like, do you see their escape? Imagine 10,000 people trying to go away through a little narrow corridor. No wonder they had to kill somebody. Like, basically, Grey Worm killed most of the Unsullied by blocking their retreat. And again, every single person you kill, it's not like they were burning the bodies afterwards. Every single death counts as a soldier for them. So basically, they gave away all the Dothraki, and they gave away all the Unsullied, pretty much. That was what I saw, at least. So that's the bad. Ridiculous, nonsensical strategy that basically just gave the enemy more soldiers. And I don't think they even had a commander there, unless you count Davos shaking the torches twice and then giving up. But anyway, the dragons come in, and they start burning people up, and that looks fucking epic. Dragons burning people look amazing. It's one of the better shots of this show. I loved how it looked, but all of a sudden, a snowstorm comes in out of nowhere, a blizzard. Now, I guess you could say that it was a magical blizzard, or the attack was planned so that it would hit at the same time as the blizzard, whatever. The point is, as a viewer, it sucks because it's already dark enough. It's really hard. It's a hard show to see because they like keeping things dark. With the blizzard, they just covered a whole bunch of other stuff. And the reason they did it is to save money, because if you can't see the things behind you, it doesn't really matter. So we're saving money. We can keep things small. Anyway, that sucked. Then I'll move on to another good thing. And I'm going to be jumping around through the timeline here. I can't go thing by thing. I just realized because this is already long enough. But another thing that I liked, another good thing, was that Lyanna Mormont died. I hate Lyanna Mormont. I was so happy to see that giant push her out of the way. Me and my buddy were just laughing our asses off. But then that was followed up by the bad, which is Lyanna Mormont killing a fucking zombie giant. One-shot kill. Are you fucking kidding me? Seriously. I don't want to get into that. It's just pissed me off. It really pissed me off because it made no fucking sense. A little girl killing a fucking giant. An injured little girl killing a fucking giant. I didn't like it. Let's just say I didn't like it, but I'm happy she's gone, and I have no feelings toward that giant zombie whatsoever, so whatever. If that's what it took to kill her off, kill her off. Bring 2 giants, bring 20. Make her bring down 20. I don't give a fuck, as long as she's out of the fucking show. Hate her. Moving on to another good. The ice dragon looked epic. A whole fight with the ice dragon looked epic. Then afterwards, when it didn't have half a face and it was running around trying to get Jon, that looked amazing. I loved every single thing of that, especially because Jon's shots were a tracking shot, which means that the camera was following behind him in a one-shot. It looked really good. This guy does really decent one-shots, even though some of them don't make a lot of sense. Like, Jon is being chased by zombies, and he closes the door that automatically locks before they could, ram through it. But, okay, whatever. I can let those things go. The bad was that the army of the Night King only came in with 1 dragon and 1 giant. Are you kidding me? They supposedly killed everything in the land of always winter. They should have come in with mammoths, polar bears, at least more fucking horses, direwolves, wolves, a whole bunch of things, crows. Like, a whole bunch of stuff should have been attacking there, but I get it. They saved all the budget for the dragons, so I'll let it go. It looked kind of cool, so whatever. Moving on to another good. Alfie Allen, that's the guy who plays Theon, is one of the better actors of this show. And that last scene of his was amazing. He didn't say a single word, yet you understand everything going through his mind perfectly. I like the way that they wrapped up his story. Everything that has to do with Theon was really well handled. They make you hate him. They make you pity him. They make you go through a whole range of emotions. And Alfie Allen did that great. Go back to see Theon Season 1. Completely different human. Go back and see Theon Season 4. Completely different human. Theon now, it's like he's still broken, but he's trying to hold on. The point is, I really liked his performance. I'm sad that he's gone. That's the bad. I'm sad that Theon's gone. I would have liked him to stay a little bit longer because I do think that he's one of the stronger actors on this show. And they keep killing the good actors off. I don't get it. Also, him fighting short range with a long range weapon didn't make any sense. Like, if I gave you 20 weapons, 20 options to fight somebody close range, a bow and arrow would be not even on your list. Like, you would not even consider bow and arrow because it makes no fucking sense. But I guess it looks cool. But anyway, moving on. Another good thing, I guessed correctly the death of Dolorous Edd and the deaths of Beric Dondarrion. So I was happy about that. You kind of saw it coming. It sucked because as it was going on, me and my friend just called like, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. So it sucked that they made it kind of predictable. But at the same time, I was like, it's cool. You know what? I got it right. It was fun. The bad is that I got wrong some of my guesses. My other guesses were I thought Gendry was going to get it. I thought Brienne was going to get it. And I thought Grey Worm was going to get it. But the dude has way more plot armor than I thought. Because I have no idea how many front lines he was. But he did have a shield. He's the only main character, I think, with a shield and a helmet. So it's a lot more believable that he survived in those conditions than fucking Sam Tarly surviving out there against whites. Like, do you understand that Jorah Mormont did not survive, but Sam did? Fucking Jorah Mormont, Beric Dondarrion, and Dolorous Edd did not make it, but Sam Tarly survived. How the fuck? Anyway, that's also another bad. But moving on to another good. I liked how they wrapped up Melisandre's story. This was the perfect place to wrap it up. I love that they brought her back, that she used her magic several times. She came in with some new powers that I don't really know where she got, but she's been gone for a while, so I'll allow it. I like things that have to do with Melisandre. Also, I love the actress. She's, I think, in my opinion, the most beautiful woman on that show. The bad is, why didn't they bring her back before? It would have been way more interesting to have her interact with the people at Winterfell. It would have been like a wrench and everything. It's like, we kind of need her because she's kind of magical and uses fire. It would have made sense to add her as part of your strategy. It would have added a little bit of drama with Davos. It would have added a lot of drama with Jon because Jon exiled her, but she kind of helped Daenerys. So why they didn't bring her back earlier, I don't know. But what she did was good, I guess. I liked her. I liked the actress again. One of the better actors in the show getting killed off. But with her, it made sense because, honestly, that's the end of her story. Her story was defeating the Night King and preventing the Long Night, which she did, so kudos for her, I guess. Anyway, moving on to another good. I like that they revived all the Starks and the Crips. I love that. And I called it, actually. Well, I actually didn't think they were going to do it, but I actually called it in my video, in my latest video, if you watch it, where I make the predictions that I think who's going to die and who's going to live. I said it would be amazing if they did it because, you know, it would teach them about consequences. And also, don't hide in a crypt when you're fighting a necromancer, which, by the way, I never understood why they didn't hide in the castle, because the castle is supposed to be the strongest part where you're supposed to make your last stand. But whatever, they went to the crypts when they're fighting a necromancer. Not a smart idea. But anyway, I like that they did it. But the bad, not a single main character died down there. Not a one. Not even Gilly. Not even Gilly or her son. Like, you know, who are almost completely defenseless. Nobody of consequence actually died down there at the crypts. What was the point of even doing it then? Sure, it looked a little bit scary, and Tyrion and Sansa held hands, but what else? What was the point? Kill off Varys. Varys hasn't done anything in forever. Kill off somebody. Anyway, moving on to another good. If you go back and listen to my very first podcast, in it I say a few things that I do not want to happen on the show, and one of the things that I did not want to happen was that Bran was going to become the Night King. He was going to travel back in time and become the Night King. Now, after I saw what they did with the Night King, I'm not sure if I'm happy about it. Actually, no, you know what? That was disgusting. So it's good that I got it right, or that they didn't do it, but it was just horribly, disgustingly bad what they did with him. They killed the main villain of this show. They had been building this guy up since the very first scene of this show. They killed him off halfway through their final season, and he never said a word. We know absolutely nothing about him. Nothing of his motivations, nothing about his plan, nothing about nothing. We don't even really understand his powers. None of it made any fucking sense because Arya kills him with a dagger, which, by the way, that's adding insult to injury because George R. R. Martin has mentioned that one of his biggest regrets in the story is that he made the cat's paw, that dagger that Arya had, he made it of Valyrian steel because it wouldn't make any sense for anybody to pay an assassin with something so valuable. Anyway, so they killed him off with a Valyrian steel dagger after he survives Dragonfire. Point blank Dragonfire. Now, there's 3 things we know that kill whites, right? Fire, Valyrian steel, and obsidian. You know what obsidian and Valyrian steel have in common? Well, Valyrian steel was forged in Dragonfire, and obsidian is created in volcanoes, which is supposed to reach the temperature of Dragonfire. So you're telling me that the 2 things that can kill whites, confirmed things that can kill whites, that are special because they were forged in the temperatures of Dragonfire, are not as good as Dragonfire itself, even though we've seen fire kill whites. How the fuck does that make any sense? Dragonfire is not only supposed to be super powerful, it's supposed to be magical. It gives magical properties. Dragons in general are supposed to be magic. The dragons in the story are stand-ins for nukes. So it was basically if the Night King got hit by a nuke and survived, and yet Arya with a fucking dagger that George R. R. Martin hates is the one that kills him? Are you fucking kidding me? I hated that. In fact, I hated every single thing that had to do with Arya in this episode. Her being fucking Darth Maul, and then the whole little horror movie thing that made no sense. You're in the middle of a siege, and yet zombies are really calmly walking around the library. The library, which, by the way, burnt down, but whatever. So they're very calmly just walking around there. Are you kidding me? It's a siege. They should be running around like crazy. That made no fucking sense either. Like, that whole sequence was just garbage. None of it made any sense. Why would the Hound and Beric go in and after her? And why was it so quiet? There were people dying outside. Stupid. Didn't make any sense. Wasn't even scary. It was just a waste of time. And I hate so much that it was Arya the one that killed him. Honestly. Even if Bran would have warged into him and overpowered him, that would have been better. If Bran would have done the whole time travel thing, it would have been better. If Jon would have killed him, it would have made it better. If the dragon would have killed him, it would have made it better. But fucking Arya, out of nowhere. By the way, did you guys remember that the guy was surrounded? He was surrounded by a whole bunch of troops, and yet nobody did nada. And also, one of the things that I said that I hated if it would have happened, I hope it didn't happen, is if you kill the mothership, all the drones die. And that's exactly what happened. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Writers who do that are hacks. You are all a bunch of hacks. How about if you would have made your characters overcome the issue? How about if they would have developed the strategy where they fight them on the outside, and then they slowly go back, and then they fight them on the walls. They keep fighting, and they overcome the enemy. They don't just, magically cut off the head of the snake, and everything dies. It's lazy writing, and you know it. It's disgusting. And there was so much plot armor going on here, I couldn't even keep track. Like, Daenerys fell off a dragon that was being swarmed by zombies, and then all the zombies kind of leave her alone. And then as she's about to get swarmed again, Jorah, out of fucking nowhere, comes in. Now, granted, I don't remember seeing Jorah go into the castle, but he was outside the whole time and survived? Or was he on the walls and saw that thing happen and managed to run out of the castle through the gates, or at least through the hole that was on fire that the ice dragon made? And so he ran all the way there and still reached her on time before the zombies that were right next to her did it? What the fuck? Where did Jorah come from? Where? Honestly, if he was outside and survived the whole time, or he was just hiding, kudos to Jorah. You are a great man. But I doubt it because I saw you in the fight. I just didn't see you in the fight inside. And everybody retreated on the inside. If you stayed outside, you're an idiot. But I guess you're a lucky idiot because you survived until you didn't. Until Daenerys didn't need you anymore and you died. It didn't make any fucking sense. And I get it, okay? I get suspension of disbelief. You're supposed to accept things are happening. Now, suspension of disbelief does not mean what you think it is. A good example, Star Wars. It begins with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Now, suspension of disbelief means I know that the people that I'm seeing on screen are not from a long time ago and are not in a galaxy far, far away, but I accept it. I pretend like it is. Suspension of disbelief. What they're asking for me to do in Game of Thrones is just ignore all of the rules that they've set up to this point, or that logic dictates, and just people are just teleporting everywhere. Like, honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if Drogo would have showed up and saved Daenerys. It's like, weren't you supposed to be dead? They came back to rescue you, Khaleesi. Like, honestly, that would have made a little bit more sense. Or at least, you know what, Dario Naharis. Khaleesi, I came here to rescue you. What are you doing with that other boy who's technically your nephew? That is disgusting. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that way too much plot armor is going around. Honestly, no wonder nobody had a fucking shield. They didn't need it. They had their plot armor. Some of them weren't even wearing actual armor. I think Samuel was just wearing leather. I think the Hound was just wearing leather. If I was up against zombies, you know what's the first thing I would wear? Fucking armor. In the very least, chainmail. That way they can't bite ya. And seeing Arya be an expert with so many things is just, I don't get it. We saw what she did. She was blind and she washed dead bodies. When was she trained to become an expert assassin? She fought a little bit with a bowstaff, I'll give you that. Fighting with a bowstaff is not the same as fighting with a knife. Fighting with a knife is not the same as fighting with her needle. Fighting with a needle is not the same as fighting with a saber. Fighting with a saber is not the same as using that dual-ended spear, whatever the fuck she was using. None of it made any sense. But, you know, Arya's gotta save the day. Fuck Arya, I hope she dies. Did everybody forget that last season she killed a guy and baked him into a fucking pie, then made his dad eat him? And then she killed the entire fucking family? Some dudes that weren't even there. Some dudes that were probably just, you know, living their lives trying to make money. And she just fucking destroyed them. Then threatened to kill her sister and cut off her face and take over her life. Why do people like this girl? I don't get it. But anyway, that's enough for today. I think that's enough for today. I think there's other stuff in there, but right now my head hurts. So let's just move on to the Martin. So for those of you who don't know, the Martin is the segment where I share a fun fact from the author, George R. R. Martin, or from the books. So since I mentioned them earlier before, that the dragons are stand-in for nukes in the story, I'd share one or two little fun facts about the dragons. For starters, before A Song of Ice and Fire, or A Game of Thrones as it's known because of the TV show, George R. R. Martin was mainly a science fiction writer. So what he's always said is that the series, the book and the show, is actually based on science fiction. It's not fantasy, it's science fiction. And one of the examples he always uses is the dragons. Now, for those of you who don't know much about dragons, the dragons we see on the show are not technically dragons. They're actually called wyverns. Now, Dario, what's the difference between a dragon and a wyvern? I'm glad you asked, because this is something that's been bothering me for a really long time. The difference between a dragon and a wyvern is that a dragon has 4 legs, a tail, and 2 wings. So the wings are not its arms. A wyvern has 2 legs, a tail, and the arms are its wings. So it's closer to a bat. Now, in the animal kingdom, except for bugs, there are no animals that have 6 limbs. So dragons aren't real. They're not part of the real world. They're magical beings, and that's why they have 6 limbs, and it's fine. However, wyverns would be the closest to what a dragon would look like in the real world. So that's what George R. R. Martin says. If dragons were real, that's how they would look like. They would look like wyverns. And now, a lot of people give me shit because they're like, oh, dude, wyverns are a type of dragon. Yeah, humans are a type of monkeys. Not the same fucking thing, okay? So there's a right way and a wrong way to call things, and I've always tried to say wyverns, but everybody always yells at me. But the point is, fun fact, dragons on the show are actually wyverns. That's how we should call them, but nobody will, because dragon is a way cooler word, and it's way easier to say, and wyvern honestly makes you think of something kind of weird. But the point is that George R. R. Martin always uses that as an example to make you understand it. That's how much I thought about this story, and that's why I look at it in a scientific way. He always tries to keep his feet on the ground to make it as logical and realistic as possible. And so it's not magic that's happening. Every single thing is based in science, or could be at least explained away with science. So again, science fiction takes a lot of liberties, but that's his way of explaining it, and that's the way he writes. He writes in a very realistic fashion, and that's why if you look back at the show, Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, they're very brutal. There's a lot of consequences. There's no plot armor. And after, I believe, Season 5, it kind of just became a fanfic where a whole bunch of magical stuff happens for no reason. And that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of upset. And I believe I explained that earlier. Not that point, but it's another point of why. But anyway, that's your fun fact for today. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed that little Martin bit. Hope you enjoyed that little fun fact about wyverns and other dragon breeds. But that's it for the show for today. Tomorrow, I hope you're looking forward to Eddie Papani joining me. Eddie, that's my boss from the show, who is a big nerd. Might be an even bigger nerd than I am. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to be breaking down Avengers Endgame. If you have any questions, send them to me, as always, at Dario the Show on Instagram. Any comments, questions, or suggestions, send them to me there. Let me know what you thought about last night's episode of Game of Thrones. I always like hearing other people's thoughts. Maybe you saw something that I didn't. If you like how I'm getting a lot deeper into these things, let me know. The reason why I'm doing it is because people keep asking me, like, dude, actually, we want to hear you rip on it a little more. Chew on the bone. So that's what I've been doing. So I hope you enjoyed that. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll see you again tomorrow.